Who's Paul Blackburn? I know. We're going to break it down. Don't worry. Paul Blackburn is now the Metropolitans' new number 5 starter, and he will replace Tyler McGill right away in the Metropolitan rotation. How you doing, Mets fans? Whoever you're a fan of, it's your boy Wardy. We're back at it. It is officially trade deadline day. A couple hours until 6 p.m. Eastern, and we got some news. Perfect timing. It's like the Mets knew I was waiting until 4 p.m. Eastern today to start the show, and I kid you not, right before I was about to hit play, we saw Paul Blackburn is now a New York Metropolitan. So I had to get all the graphics ready. I had to get the stats up there for you guys so you know a little bit more about him. But the Mets just landed their Tyler McGill replacement in their rotation for a top 30 prospect in Cade Morris. This is an easy win for David Stearns. They gave up nothing and got starting pitching help. And trust me when I say that, I know we all want the Mets to do more than this. I will be the first to tell you I want the Mets to land an ace caliber pitcher if it's possible. But with how expensive this market is right now, I will not be shocked whatsoever if this is the lone starter the Mets find themselves landing. I think this is it, folks. I'll be quite frank. I'll be surprised the Mets land another starter. This is immediately what you're getting in your Tyler McGill replacement for their rotation right now. And we're going to talk a lot about how obnoxious these prices have been. But first and foremost, to everybody first chiming in live on a replay, smash that like and subscribe button for your guy. Greatly appreciated. We have ourselves a long-winded show that we're going to get into. We're not only going to break down everything that you need to know about Paul Blackburn and what he brings down to the Mets as a number 5, number 4 starter for them, but rather not only that, but all the other rumblings, what's going on in baseball as a whole, because again, there's a lot going on right now that we're well aware of, and it goes directly in hand with why the Mets have not made maybe bigger decisions than what we would have liked to see. With Eric Fetty now as St. Louis Cardinal. You say Kikuchi to the Astros in one of the biggest fleece jobs imaginable. Even if Kikuchi deals, that's a huge, huge haul for the Toronto Blue Jays. Then we just saw what the Miami Marlins got there for Trevor Rogers that he broke down actually live in the Bleacher Report app the past hour. Just nuts stuff there, giving up what we saw there in Connor Norby and also in Kyle Stowers, just insane stuff. So value for pitching is at an absolute high. And I know that we got a lot of Mets fans chiming in right now. They're saying, Wardy, the price is so high, the Mets should honestly just start to sell off some of their starters. They might as well do it because of how expensive pitching is right now. And in case you've been living under a rock, the reason why the pitching is expensive is simply because of all the teams pushing for that wild card spot in both the American League and the National League. That's why we got teams like the Texas Rangers, who have been fringe playoff caliber teams all year long at absolute best, just acquired Andrew Chafin, every Mets fan's favorite southpaw reliever that'll never be a New York Met, and that shows that they will be buying more than selling at the deadline. The San Francisco Giants just traded Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson back to Atlanta yesterday, and they're done when it comes to selling any key acquisitions outside of Alex Cobb, who hasn't pitched at all this year. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the baseball space right now, and trust me, I would love to see more. However, this is easily, without question, an easy victory for David Stearns and the New York Metropolitans. And I'm not just labeling that because, oh, I like David Stearns as much as I do. I'm labeling that because the Mets literally gave up a no-name prospect, quite literally, for Paul Blackburn. And this is not to down Cade Morris. If he becomes the second coming of Cy Young, we will all look back and say how terrible of a trade this was. But in the interim right now, what you're getting in Paul Blackburn is an immediate help that you're going to have in this rotation, and you can never have enough arms. Now, do I love the idea of just acquiring, 5-and-dive guys, or just guys are more in the back end than anything else? No, I want something flashier. I would like something more, but at least for the time being, the Mets are being proactive and making sure that they're adding and not strictly subtracting for a team that is pushing for playoff play. Now, again, I know a lot of questions. I know a lot of thoughts many of you Mets fans probably also have is, listen, Wardy, if we're not going to be doing anything crazy at the trade deadline and we're going to stand pat, while I have faith in this team, I'm not exactly sure how far they can go as currently constructed. So if we're not going to do much else, why not just switch up and do more of a selling spree to trade away these starters? And again, it is a great example of why you have to buy in. And for the Mets and David Stearns and this offense, they bought into each other the past 2 months. And the Mets have played way too well, quite literally the best team in Major League Baseball for a good stretch of time. Most wins in the month of July that we've seen for the most part, most in June or close to the most in June. They have played well enough to warrant buying versus just selling off. So I know it's not ideal for Mets fans that are focused 2025 and beyond. beyond that want to see them get the maximized value out of a Luis Severino, out of a Sean Manaea, out of a Jose Quintana. I understand every single one of you guys, and I understand those arguments, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter because the Mets aren't going to go down that route. Clearly, that feels a route that they would have gone down already. I will say if the Mets do trade anyone, it wouldn't shock me if they did trade, again, a Tyler McGill type pitcher or a Joey Lucchesi that cleared and is now in AAA. Shintaro Fujinami, I don't expect to be dealt, but speaking of being cleared and back down to AAA, the flamethrowing right-hander is now back in AAA with the Mets, as I figured, because no one's picking up that $3.5 million. But everybody, let's do the roll call first, and then we'll break down to a T everything you need to know here about Paul Blackburn. Everybody spam in the chat. How you doing? Where you coming from? To my 800 concurrent viewers, thank you all so much. Greatly appreciate that. Nothing crazy, absolutely. I know we got a lot of OG members in here. Thank you so much, each and every single one of you. It's going to be hard trying to catch up with the chat a little bit today with how big of a show we're running right now. But again, I appreciate everyone taking the time to chime in, and we're going to break down the latest here in Mets land. Epler 2.0, Big Meat Pete, not surprising considering that's exactly the type of stuff you usually say. How you doing, John? Dave, as always, Blackburn is not fine. He is fine for what he's going to be utilized as. I will absolutely argue that. And I will furthermore say anyone complaining about the Mets adding a starter with what they gave up in this market, you're just not paying attention. You literally aren't. The Mets literally got themselves a controllable starter beyond the 2024 season for nothing. Yes, again, this is not to down Cade Morris. I'm saying nothing in the sense of he's not a top prospect. He's not even a top 15 prospect. He's not even a top 20 prospect. You could argue he's top 30. Some people have him on the outside of the 30. Some people have him on the inside. The point is, the Mets have a deep enough of a farm to warrant making this kind of move without it being a problem. AZ with the $10 howl says, this is a classic David Stearns move, taking a chance on a starting pitcher with good stuff, but needs to put it all together. But I have no faith in Hefner to fix some of Blackburn's issues. And that's a fair point as well. Jeremy Hefner, Mets fans either love or hate. There's really no in between. I know they have a pitching lab that they've been working with. However, for the Mets this year, it's very important for them that they have as much, again, pitching talent as possible. So let's get into this all. Thank you so much for the donation. Over under on when Blackburn is DFA'd. He will not be DFA'd this season. I'll tell you that right now. Don't foresee that happening. Could he be DFA'd before his Mets tenure ends? Absolutely. This is the same Mets team. Bullpen-wise, that's 6 out of the 8 relievers that started the year in the Mets bullpen are no longer in the Mets bullpen because they have been DFA'd or parted or traded because of things ever changing the pen. Speaking of the pen, that's another thing to keep in mind because if the Mets do have a playoff run and Blackburn is fluctuating with what you're getting with him as a starter, he is a guy that the Mets may decide to turn to if they want to utilize as a reliever down the stretch should they crack postseason play. But let's break down now Paul Blackburn. Let's get into what exactly did the Mets land here in the veteran right-hander, because this is very David Stearns in the sense that they landed a guy that is coming off of an ailment. So this goes in hand with it too. That's in part why the Mets were able to buy him for what they did. Blackburn missed much of the season this year due to a stress reaction in his right foot. Thankfully, it has nothing to do with his actual, arm slot or anything like that. So that's important. But he has a 4.41 ERA in 9 starts that we see there. A former first rounder who has a year of control after the 2024 season. And as you guys see from the numbers down below, 9 starts this season, 51 innings, a 4.4 ERA, a 4.68 expected ERA. Again, the numbers aren't pretty. I'm not going to sit here and try to sugarcoat them. This is absolutely a guy that at best is what you're getting right now at the number 5 spot. And Mike, I always talk a million times a minute. I apologize. You just got to try to catch up, or I don't know what else to say. I do have some people that always ask, Wardy, why do you talk so fast? The reason why I do is because when you've been doing this thing full time as much as I have for 3.5 years straight, talking for a living every single day to hundreds if not thousands of people, which we do, I have a lot to say, and I usually only have a fairly short period of time to do so, while also trying to relay a lot of information and get to your comments. It naturally makes me a fast talker, and that's why I literally look like I'm juiced up all the time, breaking down Mets trades and stuff like that, when I'm not. Like right now, I'm calming down, as you can see, but even then, I'm still talking at a fairly fast pace to some of you. All right, guys, let's get into it. You can't slow Wardy down. You can only hope to contain him. Jay Berger said exactly to a T. Literally nailed it. But all right, Paul Blackburn, let's look at the arsenal. Four-seam fastball, which sits 92, tops out 94, 95. Cutter, which sits right around 89. Slider, 82. Changeup, 86. Curveball, 80. And sinker, 91. And when we look again, the peripherals so far this season throughout the first 9 starts, they're not pretty whatsoever. The only thing that is, I shouldn't say that. There's a couple things that are notable about this. And I think a very important aspect of why the Mets acquired Pete Blackburn is because he knows how to do something that, unfortunately for the guys in McGill's and Lucchese's, among others, have struggled with a lot, and that's walk rate. Paul Blackburn does not walk guys all that often. This season, throughout 9 starts, has a 2.47 walks per 9. Last season, a 3.73, but the year prior, 2.43. The year before that, we saw a 2.35. So, look, for Paul Blackburn, he averages right around a 2.7 walks per 9, which is not horrendous whatsoever. Obviously, you want the K per 9 to be higher because the K to walk ratio is not pretty at all, but you're just looking for an upgrade over what you currently have in that 5th spot. And I like this move mostly because it also allows the Mets to keep Jose Butto in the bullpen, at least for the time being. I absolutely love Jose Butto as a multi-aim reliever, and I personally have concerns that if you shift Butto from being a multi-aim reliever back to a starter, that he might not be anything more than a 5 and dive, and that isn't really much more than what he's currently giving the Mets, so I'm not sure how that makes all that much sense. But acquiring Blackburn makes sense because you're getting a guy that knows how to command the strike zone, that's not going to be walking the entire bases loaded every time out there, and you at least know what you're getting, even if you're not going to be getting great stuff. Even if you're going to get a Paul Blackburn that's going to give you 6 innings of 3 or 4 runs, or was the Mets offense able to keep them in the ball game 1? What was his ability to induce ground ball outs? All those kind of things are very important when evaluating Blackburn, and he is in the 68th percentile in ground ball percentage this season, so well above average there. He's also in the 70th percentile in walk percentage, 63rd in average exit velocity, and he's in the 90th in off-speed run value. Now, where things aren't pretty, mind you, it's just throughout the first 9 starts. The Padres are slanted Tanner. You know, when we take a look at his 2023 numbers in a bigger sample size, they're honestly not terrible, at least when you're seeing from Savant here. More the same, but barrel percentage was in the 82nd percentile last year. Hard hit percentage was in the 86th percentile. Funny enough, his walk percentage was down last year, but that was true because that was an anomaly of a year for Blackburn, his walk per 9. So fair point. 84th percentile in average exit velocity, 63rd in chase percentage, 83rd in off-speed run value, 87th in breaking run value. So again, there's still potential there with Paul Blackburn and what you're going to get, and I would absolutely argue that what you're going to get from Blackburn is still an upgrade over your current internal options right now, excluding Jose Butto, because I want Butto to stay in the bullpen. The Mets are also getting Tyler Zuber from the Tampa Bay Rays for Paul Gervais. The Mets just made themselves another trade, so let's transition and talk about the reliever now, and Tyler Zuber, because that just happened. Yes, it did. Let's see how good or bad Tyler is. Another trade for a reliever with the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't know if I love it or hate it. We're going to find out here shortly, though, everybody. Because I would be lying if I said I knew a lick about Tyler Zuber prior to looking him up right now. Not a clue. Not a clue. And I'm not going to be afraid to say that. I don't watch the Jays, the Rays constantly. Oh, okay. Oh, I got excited. I got too excited for a second. Oh, that was hilarious. I got way too excited for a second. I saw a 2.7 ERA and I got excited. And then I realized that's only 3 innings a season. So never mind that. Okay. Well, that's an arm. That's a human. That's a thing. So there you go. And that's exactly the David Stearns type reliever. I'm not surprised there. Wild Willie, McGill, Butto, Stanek, Nunez, Diaz, that not bad. If you shift McGill to the bullpen, no, it's not bad. It really isn't. And I think McGill is absolutely a solid bullpen option if he can transition there. That's the thing. I don't know if he can. But yes, that was the latest trade that the Metsies have done. They have acquired a reliever. And I have a feeling the Tampa Bay Rays are going to make Paul Gervais an absolutely fantastic reliever. The same way that I still feel like that they're going to get the best out of Kashawn Askew, who the Mets traded for Brooks Raley a couple years ago. Remember that wacky thrown southpaw, Kashawn Askew? Well, you know, he's been up and down in the minor leagues for the Rays, but interesting arm. Now we just trade away Paul Gervais, who's roughly 7 foot. Has been having some success there that we've seen in the minor leagues this year. But yes, the latest move the Mets have done, they have acquired a reliever. However, this is not a reliever that I would expect to have much of an impact for the Mets, at least immediately. I'm not going to sit here and critique the reliever move much, just because we can't sit here and be hypocrites and say, oh, this guy's a bum, he's not going to work, when who had Reed, Garrett, Danilo, Nunez on their resume of guys that would at all be effective for the Mets this year? If you do, I really want to know more about you, because clearly you see into the future and the way that I don't, and the way that no other fan certainly does. But That's what I'm getting at. With bullpens, we know how fickle they are. You don't need the sexiest names. Do you want the sexiest names? Absolutely. I want the sexiest names. You want the sexiest names. Who doesn't? Doesn't change the fact that those things are at times, sadly, farther from reality. Sure, you get involved now. The best MLB fantasy game out there, as they are giving away over $100,000 in total prizes for their July chase, which is their weekly tournaments. And then they're going to collectively score the top 3 scores out of the 4 tournaments that you entered throughout the month of July. And should you come out on top, you're going to win plenty of money. And as we see here, this is my roster for the July chase week 4 of 4 that we got going right now, everybody. I got Zach Wheeler, who had a piss poor start, sadly. Edwin Diaz, Manny Machado, Gunnar Henderson. That's because Zach got his tit slipped by the Yankees, didn't he? Brandon Nimmo, Josh Naylor, who is hurt day to day, but 28 points, and George Kirby. That is what I got there for my Sower MLB team. And you can sign up for free, draft your team, enter weekly tournaments today for all your MLB fantasy needs with our great friends by clicking that link in the description down below. And thank you all so much in advance for doing exactly that. But let's talk a bit more about what we have here in Mr. Tyler Zuber. And the easiest way to do that, shout out the Mets. They have made that official there that we see with Paul Blackburn. But let's get into it a little bit more here that we see with Zuber. Yep, that is the Wardy Twitter. Follow me if you haven't. Thank you so much in advance to everybody that has. And the Mets just announced Zuber as well. The Mets have designated Ty Adcock for assignment as the corresponding move, by the way. So this is what you guys got in Tyler Zuber. Insane stuff according to my guy Isaac here. 114 stuff plus on the 4-seam, tops out at 98 miles per hour. 137 stuff plus on his sweeper. 124 stuff plus on the cutter. This is all according to Pitch Profiler. So just for some context, everybody, stuff plus is the equivalent to being WRC plus, OPS plus, but for pitchers, and specifically their arsenal. So it's on a grade scale of 100. If you're above 100, you're above league average for that specific pitch among all other pitchers in baseball eligible that throw that same kind of pitch. And if you're below 100, then you're below league average in that category. So he's 14% better than the average pitcher with his 4-seam fastball right now. Even with a limited sample size, just from that sample size alone, he's already in a solid spot, topping out 98. 37% better than the average pitcher in baseball with his sweeper. 24% better than the average pitcher in baseball with the cutter. Awesome stuff. Beautiful breakdown. Love, love, love it. I've admitted plenty when things haven't went well, Joseph. But here's the thing. A trade can never be a bust for the Mets when they gave away no-name prospects in order for MLB-ready talent the way that they did today. You guys can maybe not think that the moves are anything crazy because they're not, at least what you're seeing immediately. But what they are absolutely guys that will impact the Mets whether you like it or not, and you got to hope that they find themselves having success. So great breakdown by my guy Isaac. If you haven't followed him on Twitter already, highly implore you all to do so. He does such a fantastic job for me. Every single night, Isaac does a thorough breakdown and giving me advanced information beyond the eye test, and he has fantastic threads that he does too. And then we saw he did like Gervais quite a bit, and he said that here Gervais is a reliever I really liked. I'm sure the Rays will do him well. Zuber is more of a short thing and has some really good stuff. So yeah, he's happy about what we're getting in Tyler Zuber, and really nice pickup, actually. Very happy with it. And again, this is one of those guys where if he's electric for the Mets and they get this guy and he goes from being a Long Island Ducks to turn Tampa Bay Ray, turn New York Metropolitan, elite flame-throwing right-hander, then sign me the hell up. Relievers are so fickle. You can find them anywhere, everywhere. However, for the Mets, we need as many arms as possible. So while they're not necessarily done making moves, they did make themselves an interesting pickup here in Tyler Zuber. Got you covered. Yes, we will be active on both YouTube and all audio platforms in the near future. I promise you that is actually going to happen. So looking forward to that for sure. Craig Mish, let's check Craig Mish. What you got? What did Craig have to say? For those that don't know Craig Mish, he is the top reporter there for the Miami Marlins. And Mish just tweeted, "Oh my God, more trades coming. This is wild. Oh, give me Jesus Luzardo. Give me him. Give me it now." Wardy, a Yankee fan? No, say that. So who is a Yankee fan? Who's a Yankee fan? I'm not a Yankee fan. If you're a Yankee fan, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see. I'm just gonna look up. If the Marlins have more big trades coming, their next biggest chip to trade would be Jesus Luzardo. It has to be. Right? Get Brazoban, the 34-year-old right-hander. Oh! Bang! 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 I didn't realize how good of a year Brazoban was having. 10K per 9, 3 walks per 9, 2.9 ERA, 2.49 expected ERA, and 30 innings pitched. Ah! We got our guy! We got our guy! Let's go! Lock in, baby! Hype it in the chat! Brazoban, that's the big bomb of the day. That's what we like to see. That is what we like to see. Let's go! There we go. Ken Rosenthal with the bomb. This is sick. I like this. I like it a lot. I'm excited. I'm happy about it. Let's talk about it. And so we talked about Paul Blackburn at great length. We talked about Tyler Zuber, 2 pitchers that the Mets have added, and now they've added another one, this time in Huascar Brazoban, who comes to the Metsies here after a fantastic season thus far with the Miami Marlins. He might not be Tanner Scott good, but he's still pretty darn good, and the Mets get him with multiple years of control. The 34-year-old right-hander absolutely deals, and we have seen him thrive this season with a sub-3 ERA, but even better expected numbers. A 2.93 ERA, but a 2.49 expected ERA. A 3.18 SI ERA, just over a 1 whip, a 2.63 FIP this season, 34 strikeouts. Again, how could you go wrong here if you were the New York Metropolitans? A career 3.5 ERA pitcher here in Brazoban, who, oh yeah, by the way, throws absolute gas. Just for some context, he's in the 78th percentile in fastball velocity, sits 96, tops out 99, Average exit velocity, he's in the 100th percentile in Major League Baseball, which is insane. In the expected ERA, he's in the 90th plus percentile. Expected batting average, he's right around the 90th plus percentile. Chase percentage, he's in the 80th plus percentile. Whip percentage, same thing there. K percentage, he is right in the 80 plus percentile there. Walk percentage, just a little bit below league average, so I'd say probably in the 40th percentile or so. A barrel percentage, 90th plus percentile. Hard hit percentage, 100th percentile. Ground ball percentage, folks, 80 plus percentile. Like, I'm sorry, what? Garcia, the Red Sox? All right, who? That's fine. That's fine. Screw Luis Garcia. That's nothing. I don't care. I don't care. All I care about is this. The Mets just got themselves a fantastic right-handed arm. That is what they did. That's why I'm so pumped up about this, okay? They got themselves a controllable veteran right-hander that can come in for a setup for Edwin Diaz. He can come in to even get a save in either non-save situations or, situations where Diaz was pitching on back-to-back days and you don't want him out there. This completely changes the dynamic for the Mets here in the best way possible for their bullpen. Now the Mets have a great problem to have with their bullpen configuration on what works versus what doesn't by bringing in Brazoban here. Fantastic. Cannot say enough great things about this pickup, everybody. I want to know your initial reactions to this because, mind you, the Mets traded their MLB pipeline top 22 prospect, literally their 22nd prospect ranked in the farm right now, that being in Wilfredo Lara, who, don't get me wrong, was performing very well in the minor leagues this season, but it doesn't change the fact that this is a lesser prospect when you got such an immediate return for this bullpen. I mean, you cannot go wrong here if you're the Mets. I love this deal for sure. Martin Perez of the Padres, and I did see Dylan Carlson got traded to the Rays. Yeah, they'll fix him. The Rays are going to make Dylan Carlson a 40 home run hitter and the next Joey Gallo next season. You just watch and wait. Watch. Literally. It'll happen. Because of course it does with the Rays. But for the Metsies here, would I have loved Flaherty or Fetty? Yes, but those guys were coming at such a premium. I understand why the Mets didn't. Listen, everybody, the Mets just added 3 arms today and didn't give up one prospect that isn't anything more than the 22nd ranked prospect in the organization, or top 20. The Mets gave up 3 between 20 and 30 prospects today, ranking-wise, between the 20 to the 30th ranking. That is what they gave up today, and they acquired their Tyler McGill/Joey Lucchesi replacement as their number 5 starter. They acquired a very high upside, electric, very interesting arm, that being Tyler Zuber, who started this year in independent ball with the Long Island Ducks, got picked up by the Rays, had just under a 3 ERA in a couple innings this season, touches a 98 on the gun, and has a nice sweeper and cutter. And then you bring in Brazoban now, again, for literally nothing as your true setup option should you want to go down that route. Again, the Metsies slam dunked this one. Fantastic job by them all around. And as I just mentioned with the baseball savant numbers, just chef's kiss. Say what you will. Say what you will about David Stearns. Maybe you don't love the fact that the Mets were not able to make the flashiest moves at the trade deadline, which I understand those arguments. But for how expensive this market was, for how much the Mets, for how much we saw the Phillies give up for Carlos Estevez, how much we saw Yusei Kikuchi cost the Astros, how much Trevor Rogers costed the Orioles, how much Adam costed the Padres, how much Tanner Scott costed the Padres. When you see all these moves and then you see what the Mets did versus what they gave up, this is slam dunk. This is simply slam dunk. We're going to be doing post-game coverage for you guys today. I also want to cut out and maybe even post as a separate new clip entirely, just a little bit more about Brazoban and what the Mets were getting there, along with also that being the case in Blackburn. So I may do that, everybody, but wild one, over 2-hour live stream. Thank you all so much, everyone that chimed in live and on replay. I greatly appreciate it. We will be back live after tonight's, hopefully, series victory against the Minnesota Twins. My grade is below. Isaac, thank you so much for the donation. I greatly appreciate that, my man. I hope you're doing fantastic. I appreciate you chiming in for the input. But again, guys, that's going to do it from me. Mets make 3 pitching acquisitions today, and now they're locked and loaded and pushing for playoffs for the remainder of the season. That'll be it for me. Until then, until I see you guys a little bit later today, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And we do have, again, as I mentioned, that David Stearns presser at 6:45. So we will all be interacting and listening in on that. So we will see what David had to say, the biggest takeaways from that one. Looking forward to it, though. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Mets make some big moves, and we'll see what they have for the rest of the season.